Hello everyone. Okay, in the previous class we have discussed about the softening processes. Okay, that is lime soda process, zeolite processes, and some overview about the membrane filtrations and the prevention of membrane fouling by the application of some anti-scaling agents and its effects. Okay, now in this class we'll study about the things related to salt passages and rejection related things in the RO and nanofiltration membranes. Okay, so before understanding what is salt passage and reduction, let us see some basics about the membrane technologies. Okay, so as you have already studied in previous sections, membrane filtrations are the technologies applied to remove water constituents at the ionic level, and calculating this membrane salt passage and rejection is very critical because it is an important parameter which will assess the performance of the membrane technologies and also the desired produced water quality after the membrane filtration. Okay, here we have studied different types of membrane technologies, that is microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, and reverse osmosis based on the pore sizes. Here the earlier technologies like ultrafiltration and microfiltration relies on distinct pores, that is water filters through the pores. Here the RO applies the diffusion technology, that is to allow water molecules to readily pass through a semi-permeable membrane layer while rejecting the constituents with a higher molecular weight. Okay, so that is the difference between the important difference between the ultrafiltration, microfiltration, and nanofiltration or RO filtration. That is the ultra and microfiltration rely on the distinct pore technology for filtration, whereas the RO and nanofiltration works on the principle of diffusion. Okay, like I was telling you, nanofiltration is also similar to the RO technology, that is it relies on diffusion, but it is used to specifically reject dissolved divalent ions and large molecular weight compounds. Nanofiltration membranes are very effective in separating water from large molecular weight compounds such as herbicides and pesticides. That is, this can be used to treat the water for irrigation related works. Okay, here the basic understanding of the RO process flow is necessary to fully appreciate the salt passage and reduction. Okay, the RO membrane system is comprised of three fluid streams, that is one is called as feed, the permeate, and the concentrate. And let us understand what are these terms means. Okay, so feed water is the one which is allowed to pass through a membrane, that is called as feed water or inlet water. Okay, here as the feed enters and passes through a membrane, a resulting permeate or the product water is obtained on the other side of the membrane, that you can call it as a treated water or permeate or a product water. Okay, and concentrate or reject water are produced. That means when you pass the influent, that is a feed water, to the membrane, part of the water gets treated and comes back on the other side of the membrane. The water which is rejected is called as a concentrate or also reject water. Okay, I hope you have understood these terms, that is feed, permeate, and concentrate. Okay, Unless there is a significant leaks in the system, the combined volume of permeate and concentrate will always equal the feed flow volume. Okay, so there is a calculation for that. That is, in a balanced condition, the mass equation is given here. That is, feed flow is equal to permeate flow plus concentrate flow. That means there is no loss in the mass. Whatever the feed which is entered, either it should come as a permeate or it should be retained as a concentrate flow. That is, the net mass is balanced here, which is given by an equation, that is QF into CF is equal to QP into CP plus QC into CC, where C refers to the concentration in the different streams. That is flow is related at Q here, and QS is the feed flow, and QP is the permeate flow, and QC is the concentrate flow. Okay, that is, this is the mass balance equation for the flow through the membranes. Okay, here what is meant by this salt passage? Okay, the percentage of compounds that pass through the RO barrier layer and subsequently found in the permeate are described as passage. Okay, so what this statement means is, again, you are using a membrane to treat the water, and you will have a feed water, okay, before passing or treating it through a membrane. Okay, when this water passes through the membrane and it comes out as a permeate on the other side, and in that permeate you will be having some compounds. Okay, for example, let us say you will have a sodium compound in a water. Okay, and that sodium compound will also be found in the membrane after the treatment. Then that is called as the passage. That means the compounds which will be retained before and after treatment in a membrane, that is called as the passage. Okay, and the compounds that do not pass through the RO barrier layer and found in the concentrate are called as rejected. Okay, the term passage is the reciprocal of the term rejection. That means if you pass the feed water through a membrane layer, then you will be having some reject water. That means you may be having some salts or some algae or some impurities which will be precipitated as or retained as concentrate, or it is also called as reject. Okay, I hope you know what is meant by the passage and reduction. Okay, so passage means the compounds that are found even after the treating water using membrane technologies, and reject is the one which gets rejected and found in the concentrate in a membrane. Okay, example of salt passage with the equation. Okay, so salt passage is given by Cp by Cf into 100. The permeate total dissolved solids can be taken as Cp. Feed water is designated as concentration, that is C flow. The concentration TDS is given by Cc. Salt reduction, like I told you, it is given by 1 minus salt passage into 100. If a RO feed water contains a permeate TDS of 10 ppm and feed water TDS of 1000 ppm, the salt passage would be calculated as by using the above equation, that is Cp by Cf into 100. Here Cp value is 10 and Cf value is 1000 into expressed as percentage, then it is 1%. Similarly, the salt rejection will be calculated as 1 minus salt passage into 100 expressed in terms of percentage. Here it is 1 minus salt passage is 0.01, that is into 100, that is equal to 99%. Okay, so this is an example for the salt passage and rejection. Then we have this term called as normalized permeate flow. Okay, so normalized permeate flow refers to the calculation that allows the comparison of a measured permeate flow rate to a standard operating condition. That means when you begin the membrane processes under normal operating conditions of temperature and pressure, you will have a normal flow. That flow we call it as NPF, or normalized permeate flow. Okay. Then this permeate flow is a function of the driving pressure, temperature and membrane conditions. Okay. By normalizing the measured permeate flow for observed NDP and temperature, a measure is obtained that can be used to compare the condition of the membrane to the original startup conditions. That means as the membrane processes continues, the membrane treatment affecting parameters like the net driving pressure, temperature and the membrane starts to fall. Depending upon that, the pressure the permeate obtained or the water gets treated will be affected, thereby affecting the membrane process in total. Okay, and this normalized permeate flow is taken as a reference for the membrane cleaning or replacement of the membrane. Okay, here a decrease in membrane permeate flow value of 10 to 15% indicates that the RO membrane cleaning is required. Okay, so this is the important parameter here while deciding the cleaning of RO membranes. This is the normal permeate flow under normal operating conditions will be having some X value. If it gets decreased over a time of in the range of 10 to 15%, then that indicates that the membrane cleaning is required. Okay, then we have one more term called as this concentration polarization. Okay, it refers to the concentration gradient of salts on the high pressure side of the reverse osmosis membrane. Okay, the salt concentration in this boundary layer exceeds the concentration of the bulk water. Okay, here what happens, a surface is created by less than immediate redilution of salt behind as water permeate through the membrane itself. That means the concentration gets built up in a concentrate when there is the continuous pressure applied on the other side to treat the water. That is called as concentration polarization. Okay, this impacts the performance of the RO process by increasing the osmotic pressure at the membrane surface, leading to the following. So this will lead to the flux will be reduced, then increased salt leakage may happen, and the increased probability of scale development, because if the salts starts to deposit on the other side of the membrane, then naturally it is obvious that it will reduce the flux, that is the average amount or quantity of water treated per unit area of the membrane per unit time. That is, it reduces flux and also it increases the salt leakage, and it due to the deposition of the salts, it will increase the probability of the scale development on the surface of the membrane. Okay, so this can be avoided by a simple method like by increasing the velocity or turbulence of the brine stream. It will help to reduce this concentration polarization. Okay, then in order to have the better usage of the membrane techniques, especially for RO and nanofiltration, we have to do a process of pre-treatment. Okay, so why do we need pre-treatment of the membranes? Okay, as you all know, we have studied that water as a universal solvent, it may contain various concentration of suspended solids, dissolved matter, impurities, salts and bacterial impurities, viruses, protozoans and bacterial spores and many such impurities. Okay, so considering the suspended salts, it may contain the organic impurities like colloids, the microorganisms, and also it may contain the minerals in the dissolved form, such as that is chlorides, and some sparingly soluble salts such as carbonates, sulfates and silica. Okay, so during the RO process, the volume of feed water decreases and the concentration of suspended particles and dissolved ions increases as the process proceeds. These suspended particles may settle on the surface of the membrane and thus blocking feed channels and increasing frictional losses, and it will lead to the pressure drop across the system. And the sparingly soluble salts may precipitate from the concentrate stream and create the formation of scales on the membrane surface. Thereby, it will lower the permeability of the membrane, and also the flux starts to decline. This process of formation of deposited layer on the membrane surface is called the membrane fouling. Okay, and overall it results in the imperformance or decrease in the performance of the RO system due to this fouling, and this fouling happens because of the above reasons we have discussed here. Okay, and there is a common indicators of suspended particles in the RO industry which are typically used and as taken as references, that is turbidity and silt density index or salt density index. Okay, the maximum limits are the turbidity should be in the order of 1 NTU and the salt density index of 4. Okay, the continuous operation of an RO system with feed water which has turbidity or SDA values near the limits of these values may result in significant membrane fouling. Okay, so that means these are the limiting values for the RO system to perform better. If the values of turbidity exceeds more than 1 and SDA salt density index value of 4, then it will result in the fouling of the membrane. For reliable and long-term operating conditions of RO systems, the average values of turbidity and salt density index in the feed water should not exceed 0.5 NTU and 2.5 salt density index units respectively. Okay, so please remember these numbers. You may get in some of the examinations related to the membrane processes. The questions related to membrane process. That means the turbidity should not exceed 0.5 NTU and SDA should not exceed 2.5 for better operating conditions of RO systems. Okay, and coming to the pre-treatment methods. So in the previous slides we discussed about the necessity of the pre-treatment, that is to increase the performance of the RO systems and also to get the maximum benefits out of RO membranes. Okay, so depending upon the quality of the raw water, the pre-treatment may consist of one or the integrated of the any one of the following methods. Okay, so that means these are various methods of the pre-treatment of the water before giving it a membrane treatment. Okay, so first one is the removal of large particles using a coarser strain. Okay, it is nothing but the provision of the different types of screens, or it is also called as straining, to remove the large debris and some biological impurities and some of the sand particles. Okay, next one is coagulation and flocculation. This we have studied in detail. You know how it works and what is the process. Then adsorption using powdered activated carbon. This also we have seen that when you pass the water to the layer of the activated carbon, due to the adsorption certain suspended impurities can be removed. Pre-oxidation with strong oxidizing agents like potassium permanganate, chlorine, ozone, etc. Okay, it can be done as a pre-treatment method. Then we can use the disinfection by chlorine, and we can also do the clarification with or without the flocculation method. Then we can do the clarification with the hardness reduction using the lime treatment or zeolite or any suitable methods depending upon the influent water quality. We can also do the media filtration, that means the rapid sand or slow sand filtration before allowing the water to the membranes. Then we can use the pH adjustment process. We can also use the addition of the scale inhibitors. That means we have seen in the previous slides that due to the formation of the scales on the membranes, it will result in the poor performance of the membranes. So we can use the scale inhibiting agents like the strong HCl and H2SO4, so that which will reduce the scale formation on the membranes, especially the targeting organic impurities and certain biological impurities which will damage the surface of the membranes. Then reduction of free chlorine using sodium bisulfate or carbon filters. We can also do water sterilization using the UV radiation technique. Okay, and final removal of suspended particles can be used using the cartridge filters. Okay, so these are usually predominant nowadays to pass the water through cartridge filters. Okay, before letting the water into the RO systems. Okay, the initial removal of the large particles from the feed water is accomplished using the strainers or traveling screens. That is, various types of the screens can be used to remove the different sizes of the particles from the water, that is from the coarse screens to the fine screens if the water is not pre-treated with a system of water treatment. Okay, so then we can also use the traveling screens. Then it is a common practice to disinfect the feed water. Okay, so depending upon what kind of water we are using as a feed to the RO systems, so basically if you talk about water treatment, we can use the groundwater or surface water as a feed water. So based on the type of the water, we can select any one method to treat the water. Okay, so for example, in majority of the cases the groundwater does not require chlorination, and biological activity is very low in case of groundwater because it is stored deep inside the ground, and usually it will be having very less turbidity, hence the coagulation also may not be required for the groundwater. On the other hand, if you use the surface water, then you can use the combination or any one of the treatment methods before allowing the water to RO systems. Okay, so coming to pre-treatment method for well water or groundwater. Although there are various pre-treatment methods we have already discussed, so here it will explain the process of treating the well water or groundwater. Okay, so like we know, if the groundwater contains many suspended impurities and also the dissolved impurities in the form of various types of salts, predominantly the iron and manganese, since the water gets stored deep inside the ground while passing through the layers of the soil. Okay, the pre-treatment of water is usually limited to the screening of the sand and addition of the scale inhibitor to the feed water with a cartridge filter. Okay, so which can be seen in the figure. Okay, you will have the screens, that is to prevent the entry of small sand and grit particles which may enter through the pumping systems, and you will be having a static mixer along with the addition of the scale inhibitor. If you add the scale inhibitor, then we have to mix it so that this static mixer will mix it and the water can be passed through this cartridge filters of the filters of pore size of 0.1 to 0.01, the microns which are used in a cartridge filter, and this water can be allowed to the RO systems. And this is the pre-treatment method for treating the groundwater or well water. Okay, so note that I have put this information in this module 4, whereas we can also have the other treatment methods we have discussed in the module 3, that is activated carbon method, flocculation, biofiltration, flocculation, coagulation, clarification, and these are the particular methods for treating the using it for groundwater and surface waters, and this is one such example for pre-treatment for treating the groundwater. Okay, then coming to pre-treatment of surface water, so here along with the screens we have the different combinations you can see here. That is, we'll have a feed along with the disinfecting agent, then the coagulant in the form of a polyelectrolyte, then we have a static mixer. Here also we can add the antiscalant agents if the water contains some biological impurities, and you may pass the water through the bed of sand, then followed by activated carbon filter. Then again we can add the scale inhibitor here with a strong HCl or H2SO4. Then the water is allowed into the cartridge filter, then it can be allowed to the membrane processes. Okay, see, this is the explanation for this. Because it may contain many inorganic and biological impurities, the water, surface water, is given the combination of different pre-treatment processes as shown in the previous slide. Okay, so it should be disinfected. Okay, so because it may have certain biological impurities, it will clog the filter media. Okay, the efficiency of this filtration process can be increased by adding filtration aids such as flocculants and organic polymers. Okay, so since it contains the many types of impurities, dissolved, suspended and colloidal, it can also be passed through a bed of activated carbon filter as shown in the previous slide. Okay, here the cartridge filters are almost universally used in the RO systems prior to high pressure pumps. So they serve as final barrier to waterborne particles and it will increase the life of the membranes. Okay, the normal rate commonly used in RO applications is in the range of 5 to 15 microns. Okay, some systems also use the very fine micron size as low as 1 micron. Okay, which is used in the cartridge filters. Okay, which we have seen in both the groundwater and surface water pretreatment methods. Okay, so these are cylindrical cartridges in which the filter membranes are placed in the sizes of 5 to 15 micron or also as low as 1 micron. Okay, so those are called as cartridge and the system is called as cartridge filters. Okay, recently the new pretreatment equipment has been introduced into the RO market. That is, it consists of backwashable capillary microfiltration and ultrafiltration modules. Okay, and these can operate reliably at a very high recovery rates and low feed pressure, and it can provide better feed quality than a number of conventional filtration steps operating in series. But this equipment cost is still very high compared to the cost of a RO unit itself. That's why careful consideration has to be made before adopting this technology, but under unavoidable situations we can use this technology for pre-treatment of the water. Okay, so considering all this, and as you know, we have discussed some of the pre-treatment methods already in the module 3 with some sketches, that is powder activated carbon, biofiltration methods, disinfection using chlorine and passing of water to the bed of filters, etc. And at the end, I can say the selection of membrane technology is a crucial task in treating the water using the membrane processor. That means what kind of membrane you should select and how to treat the water, what should be the pressure and operating conditions, how to avoid the anti-scaling, how to increase the membrane life, and it all depends on different parameters like influent water quality, the concentrate, the permeate, etc. Hence it comes by experience and by the proper judgment to select the appropriate membrane technology in the treatment of water. Okay, so this completes the membrane processes. So far we have discussed many things related to the membrane treatment technologies, right from the microfiltration to reverse osmosis. Okay, so this is the end of part A of module 4. So we will start with the disinfection process in the next class. Okay.